Alright, I haven't done one of these in like a million years, but I played one, just one game so far, and it's a pretty long one as you can hear. And it was a ZvP. I'll just times for it. I think there were a lot of things that were going on in the game that I wasn't particularly aware about, or questions that I had to myself, but I couldn't really spare the time to answer them. So I'm gonna try to do that watching this replay. And it's on Ascension to Aiur. I don't really remember all the maps. I think I know a few of them, the names, I know the looks of them. The rush distances are very different, so as you can see, they went for the probe, the scout, and just giving them the benefit of the doubt, they arrived like a few seconds before they could. I think it was just a scout to see if it was like a 12 pooler. Because I didn't know it at the time because I can't possibly see and I didn't drone scout. No one really does, my knowledge, I think. So if you wall off low ground and a 6 pool comes or something, then I guess that probe scout does see if their Ling is coming and they can react accordingly. With this kind of setup, I guess they can have like a probe and try to make a wall, wait for a zealot or something, delay the next. But as is, I just opened hatch gas pool and I haven't really knowing how to open in ZvP because if you see the income tab, the Protoss just naturally has more workers. Reason, not for some reason. The reason is the chrono boost. And chrono boosting just gonna allow them to have more workers faster. And Zerg doesn't exactly have injects until they have their queens out, and then they have to wait for that oblique. I don't know how many seconds it is. It used to be like 45, but that was a different time scale than HOTS. Looks like they opened up Stargate, but they didn't skip Warpgate and they got their depth. So it was a pretty standard opening, but as you can see now, the worker count is evening up, but for most of that early game, Protoss is just having more workers than the Zerg player. And I don't really know how to. I think that's just something you have to accept because there's some openings. I didn't really do a standard I kind of standard where I just went for Ling speed, and then I'm just gonna pause it here. Ling speed, and then another 100 gas or 200 gas in total for Overlord speed as well. And what I did is I just got the 2 queens, and I think a lot of people just like to grab a quick third hatchery and get 1 queen, but then what happens is that they don't have they have so much larva, so many larva, and they can't really spend it because they need to spend money on the queen, they need to spend money on the lings to combat the adept, and they have to spend money on the hatchery, and it's just spreading yourself way thin. And I don't really know what the queen is for, besides shooing off the early adept and to inject the hatchery. Inject the hatchery, you just have more larva, and that's more larva that you can't really spend, and you do still have to get the second queen as well. So a lot of people inject once and then grab a creep tumor, but then I just feel like when I did that before, and I used to do that a whole bunch, I just couldn't spend all that larva. I just had no money, and I had to like try to eke out queens and stuff. And in this way, if I just get 2 queens and delay the third hatchery, it's not like too late. I'm still spending all that money on drones. I got another set of lings because if the second adept comes up, or even just one adept, if they just 4 lings can deal with the adepts way better than before. And as you can see, they did open up a stalker. I don't really know how that affects their stuff besides they get a later mothership core. I haven't really lost. Oh, I did lose an overlord. I didn't even notice that. So I guess I lost an overlord, but I do see that the oracle is coming. I haven't gotten an evo chamber or a bane nest yet, just because a lot of people do like to get that evo chamber just for ling drops, or they get a hurry up on their +1 melee. But I like to get more and more drones, and more queens to get more creep spread, and especially against a Stargate. I do get 3 spores, and I think some really good players will debate whether or not you should get a spore crawler if you're getting extra queens. But the problem with that is if you do have, because you two queens in your mineral line can shoo away an oracle really easily. But that's just it, is that you need to have those queens in your mineral line, and if they're in your mineral line, you can't really spread the creep. And they can't really walk around to, especially on Ascension to Aiur. The third base is pretty far away from control. So I see two oracles here, and I don't really have any of those Hydra spores to stop them. I go for an additional to scout to see if they're still like, what are they going for afterwards. And here, I do have 5 queens, but one of them died, and we trade a queen for an oracle. So Lost Tab, it's pretty even right now, but I do like my position more because I feel like you need to do more damage, but then, like, I feel safe now. During the game, I was thinking about if they're gonna do that oracle and then a bunch of adepts to push, but I did scout the third base, and when I sent the Ling in a while back, I saw the 2 adepts and the mothership core at the third base to stop any Ling run-bys. Tried to cancel the third, so I felt confident they weren't going to go for an adept push. And I didn't really have too many towers either, so at this point, I think it's a pretty critical point, but pretty boring for a spectator point of view, is that I only have 5 Lings, and if I sent 1 to each watchtower and 1 to, like, patrol and stuff, I really don't have, like, those are all my army units besides the defensive queens. I have 1 for each hatchery and 1 to spread creep. And I am getting that +1 and the Bane nest. The meta for this right now, this season, is Ling, Bane, Hydra, and then a lot of people like to take that bust-wise, and some people like to take that macro or different types of transition, but Ling, Bane, Hydra is what most people do. And really good, I think. And my variation is that I like to macro, and I like to make more drones, and when I make more drones on 3 base, I get a ton of money that I can spend on other things. Whereas most people go for busts and stuff, they only get one upgrade for melee. Some people like to get 2 Evo chambers. And for me, I like to get 3 Evo chambers. Because if I get 2 Evo chambers, I'm just going for range and melee if it's Ling, Bane, Hydra, because those Lings and Hydras just attack so fast that they get attacked by other units not as fast, like Sockers and Depths and Immortals. The armor isn't really that much of a percentage compared to the attack speed of Lings and Hydras. So I didn't really. So this was a mistake here, but at the same time, I could have had like a Ling. Because if I had Overlord, I think they can clear it out. I think they did clear it out with the Phoenix. But if I had the Ling patrolling, then I can see the Warp Prism. But I do have units. I know that I can't just saturate 4 bases without making any units. I still do need to scout as well. So I do have enough units, and they have +1 already. I clicked on one of these zealots, and I'm pretty sure they had +1 too. So they'd had 3 first to damage this hatchery, and then another 3. And by now I was kind of like, oh, why did they just focus the hatchery? Because they didn't kill that many Lings. Or they did kill quite a few, but it wasn't like all of it. So here, they're just poking out and taking map control with the watchtowers, taking the watchtowers. That was really risky there. If I was going for like 66 drones or like 55 drones, Ling, Bane, Hydra, and they walked out on the middle of the map with like 2 sentries, 2 immortals, and 2 adepts, like Lings can just surround that and kill that, and then end the game. And the reason that why it's so few units is because they committed really hard on these zealots here. But I guess if they knew it was gonna be, they didn't exactly see the saturation on this base. They did see the gas guys, maybe. And here was a big mistake from them. They weren't watching for that split second. And when you do that, and you don't really see the Zerg army, I mean, that's kind of what you took a gamble and you kind of lost it. The reason why my units were there was, like I said before, it's the hatchery being targeted and I was scared of it dying. So right now, I'm going to pause it again. And I'm just getting my 3 evolution chamber upgrades. My +2 melee is almost finished, but my carapace and missiles are about to be +1 and going on to +2. As you can see, I have very few minerals and a lot of gas, and that is literally because I have made very few gas things besides the upgrades and the Hydras and the few Bane Lings. I didn't really commit on anything else. I think by now I could have made an infestation pit. In fact, I should have made an infestation pit if I didn't go infestation pit. Okay, so I get it now, but it's still a bit late, and I should grab a 5th base way sooner too. Took this one just because it's closer, and war prisms can't really, even if they fly here, the creep really sees everything. But if I take this base here, like there's a lot of empty airspace, and that Phoenix that can, it's just hard to. This Immortal is really strange. I think about it. But as is, I'm just going for that Ling Bane Hydra as said before, and it's 2-1, and then the Hydras also have a 1-1. So here is where I fought, and they do have Storm here. I'm actually pretty surprised here. So the War Prism did come here, but I did have some Lings and Bane to defend. Let's go back. Lings and Bane to defend. So what they were trying to do is split my army up, because right now you expect a Zerg to be maxed out if they're going for nothing but units. But as you can see, I'm spreading myself to other things like tech and upgrades. I got some static defense as well, 2 spines. So all that and the Evo chambers and 5th base as well, that could have been made all into units. And it's easily, you can easily surround this army and kill it. And so what I'm thinking is that how they walk across the map safely without getting surrounded is they go into like a fog location, make sure I don't see them, which I didn't because the Ling was here and still on their side of the map. So what they do is they try to have a warp prism to split my army. Maybe if I move my entire army, which I do a lot of times, then they can come in here to the 4th and then keep making more and more units. But the weird part is they don't have like another warp prism or a proxy pylon and gate to warp in units. As a result, this doesn't really do much damage at all. Instead, the army comes, and they do have Storm. It is 9 minutes, and I'm not really surprised that I didn't really put that much aggression, and I kind of let them do what they want, and they let me do what I want. So doing this is kind of bad. There are rocks here, but you have to break them to surround this army, or you could go all the way around. It's just, they have the watchtowers, it's 2 adepts, and it's really hard for me to kill them with just some Lings. I have to bring at least multiple types of units, or lose a bunch of Lings if I just bring Lings. And here they get really good Storms, and this is actually a pretty bad engagement for me. They didn't rally that Wayward Immortal here. And I do have some Lings here, so I didn't really exactly want to lose them, and they didn't have something to reinforce their army well. And I didn't know that for sure, but I kind of knew that because I saw that their army wasn't getting any bigger. It was like the units were streaming in very slowly, and they wanted to stay there and kill the Lings, and if I backed off, then they would have done just that. But those Lings are already in a good position, and I see that they don't have Storms. They only have those few units. And here I wondered if I could just end the game right here. Those are one of those questions where Ling Bane Hydra is really strong, and if they don't have any Storms, then I should just kill them. But you do need to fight and take a good engagement. Otherwise, they just kill everything. This is a pretty good stronghold right here. They have a bunch of High Templars that are about to have Storm. This space they could have saturated a bit better, but I think that was just because the game was pretty hectic and they everything at once. There was also a Warp Prism that I killed. Once I sent the Ling Bane there, I didn't remake any Banes, and instead I rallied some High from the other rallying units, and they deployed their Warp Prism, and I just killed it. So that's like a load off my chest, and if I really wanted to, I could patrol Lings and have Overlords, but again, the game is pretty hectic and I can't do all of that. So I try to walk in here and see what happens, but this is a pretty difficult place to assault, especially with the 2 cannons and the 2 pylons that can have Photon Overcharge. And I didn't know for sure if they didn't have Storm yet, and just to break that, gonna be really difficult. And like 2 adepts, that adept had 4 kills before it died, and if I didn't bring at least multiple types of units, I couldn't really. I didn't have to bring my whole army at all, but I was kind of flustered at the point. Well, I wasn't flustered, but I was preoccupied with doing other things. And in the meantime, I was starting my Hive and my Spire a while back, and it was really important that that War Prism didn't get out of control, because if it gets out of control, the Spire can die and the Hive can die, and my army would have to go back to defend it. And as soon as like I take a bad engagement with that War Prism and the War Prism capabilities, then my transitions are all in they're all in jeopardy. And this player was pretty. I don't know if it was, I would say, necessarily good as in a positive thing, because each time they take these 2 watchtowers, it is Protoss units are pretty expensive. They are zealots, and they didn't really have. They did have an excess of minerals in the. So with that War Prism dead, I took back the Hydras, and their army is really small, and they only have 2 sentries. The majority of this are Immortals, and I think that during this meta, I don't think the Protosses are gonna keep making Immortals, because I feel like Immortals are like the worst unit. I mean, they're amazing against armored units like Roaches and Ultralisks and stuff, and I guess like I get the fact that they're Immortals and they're tanky and they have hardened shields, but against Ling, Bane, Hydra, it doesn't really do much. And I think I saw a couple pro games where people are starting to get going back to Colossus, and I'm a big fan of that. It's just that I think a lot of people don't like doing that, because when the Zerg transitions to fire, it puts them into an awkward position. But better the awkward position of that than this awkward position of having Immortals. And I mean, they did have good storms, and like right there, I took the most open engagement I could have gotten, and I still lost quite a bit. I want to see that again. So yeah. So what I wanted to do is just deny them from getting more and more bases. I don't actually see this base. I thought they already had this base as my attack. Or if they didn't have this base, I would go and attack here, because I thought their base was here. But instead, they took this one. It is a bit branching out, but they have pretty good defenses. They have really good defenses, I'd say. They have a lot of cannons and a stasis orb, so even if you're a Zerg and you don't exactly know what's going on. As I see their army coming out, I wanted to attack this base, but there wasn't a base there. And I want to surround this army, because this is the most open. It did screw up a force field, but it actually worked out for them, because it created a funnel where the storms got maximum efficiency. And so I did take a relatively bad engagement, but at the same time, when I have so many resources and my units are a lot cheaper, I don't really mind it as much, is what I was thinking during the game. But as I can see here, it might not have been the best thing, because all I'm doing is reinforcing Lings. I thought I was making Corruptors, but I guess that was a bit later on. So when I can attack this space, the cannons are over here, so yeah, I'm just trying to bait out storms, and they are caught in an open area, so it's really easy for me to take a good engagement. Why I think the real power of Ling, Bane, Hydra comes in when they don't have that many sentries to force field, and they only have storms and Immortals that really do well against Ling, Banes, and Hydras. So I mean, I do try to micro, and I do tank a bit of storms, but at the same time they do maintain their bulk of Immortals, but that's really just it. I wondered if I could just end the game right there by just running in here and attacking. This does have a shit ton of things, photon overcharges, and if they had a lot of units, money, sorry, they were going carriers right now. I think that was a decision before the trading happened. And if they didn't go for these carriers and they just went for their gate tech, defend against this attack better, I think they could have held it. And not only that, they would have had the capability, if I pursue this army, warp in charge lots all around. When the charge lots are warped right in front of your Hydralisks, there's a big risk of you just, like, the fight can go either way. Hydras can die and have the Immortal bulk, and they don't actually die, then turns really poorly for the Zerg player, but since they were transitioning to carriers, which I didn't know about, then it actually goes really well for me, and I was trying to kill this base. I could have killed more probes, I guess. I mean, I killed most of them. And they're trying to defend this base, but it's already gone, and losing Immortals, I don't really care at this point because I'm making Corruptors. And I was going Greater Spire. And I didn't know they were going carriers, but I guess watching this replay, it allows me the perspective to go like, oh, you know, if a pro wrestler is sitting on 4 base for a while, then they're going to have either more gateway units, more stuff to defend against the 4th base, defend the 4th base against the Zerg attacks, or they're going to go into something else like another Warp Prism. If I didn't kill that Warp Prism, they could have just warped in more and more units. That would have accounted for that was gone into carriers in this game. So I'm still maxed out, and I'm getting more, and I'm going to Broodlords when I'm not quite sure if it was, because I am aware of carriers now, so I only morph to Broodlords because there's a big trap where you spend all your money and, more importantly, supply into Broodlords, and they have mass air, and the Broodlords can only siege, and you don't really need too many Broodlords to siege. I'd say an ideal number is like 4 to 6, maybe even 8. This game's pretty hectic that I didn't have the attention to put in vines and stuff. But if there was a War Prism here, then I would be kind of screwed because they could have just sent a bunch of Zealots and killed this base, or a GT killed that base, and I would only be on 5 bases. I haven't taken this base. I mean, I totally could have, because I'm floating a lot of money. But I have floating a lot of money, so I can put a bunch of static defense. But since this game was so hectic, I couldn't do that. As a result, I'm actually on 91 drones right now, so it's actually way, way better for me. I am a bit oversaturated. So I do need to free up supply, as I highlighted it. I could have spent more static defense so I can free up supply to make more other units. So here I hotkey my Corruptors because I know that they stack really easily, especially when you have Ling, Bane, Hydra, and I had 2 Broodlords too. I didn't really hotkey those. I mean, I could have, but they're slow that I don't really need to. But it's hard to target carriers because the Interceptors just fuck with the AI of the Corruptors. So I needed to hotkey those as well. And yeah, if they stack up like that, I mean, I did fly past the storms, and there weren't too many air units besides the Archons. I'm not quite sure this was a good trade. This was actually a poor trade for me. As you can see, I do kill all the carriers, and I mean, that storm was pretty good too, but a lot of the Corruptors are like in the red and they're about to die, and I mean, I did kill all the carriers, I killed a lot of the storms, and I did kill the Nexus here. So that was kind of gambly in my eyes. It was really gambly. I didn't have to lose these Hydras here. I could have backed those up, but I remember deciding to not pull them back or micro them just because I wanted more Corruptors. I kept wanting to go transition to mass air because I thinned out the carrier count, so if I made more Broodlords, there wouldn't be an overwhelming amount of air to kill my stuff. I did do a Ling run by. I could have sent more Lings to base. I targeted a fleet beacon here because that was like, I guess I could have targeted Stargates, but I like targeting the fleet beacon. It was just like a split second. This wasn't really watched well enough, and I mean, I killed a lot of probes. I think most of them already were killing this base and the probes to come. I targeted, and I actually killed this. I wasn't aware of it at the time, and a lot of these moves are kind of risky. The questions I mentioned in the beginning of the video is that I was wondering what other things I could do. I think a drop to this base and attacking this base could be good, or attacking this base and dropping here, or Nidus Worms or anything. Just something to have less risk tied to it, because these major engagements are really risky to send in my entire army that's really fragile, by the way. And as a result, I do get a bulkier army, but it's not exactly. It's really slow too, so as you can see, there's no chance in hell I can fight the Protoss army, when my army's down here, it takes forever. Nidus is totally would counteract that, and I do know they still have a big Immortal ball, so I didn't transition Ultras or Roaches or something like that. I could have gotten a few Vipers, but my resource ratio isn't that great. And here, really unfortunate for them. They could have easily saved all their High Templars, and I would have been in a way worse position. I killed them. Oh yeah, Mothership of course here, and I that. Okay, there's spoilers. But I am actually running a bit low on money. They kill a lot of drones after killing that base. They actually put my worker count into a more reasonable worker. As a result, I'm able to have more and more. Yeah, so I do actually have more resources in my army. If I didn't have that many Banelings, I didn't know what this was, I could have surrounded these Immortals with Lings and they would have all died. I think this player was pretty humorous with their Immortals movement on the map. They had like that one stray one movement. I mean, when you have only Immortals, like only Lings, surround that and kill that, and even if there are a few Hydras, that's even better. But most of my attention was on this army because I know that if I could have sent these units to attack this base, I wanted them to be more split apart, and because if they bring their whole army and fight me, there's a big chance I can lose. There is a huge supply deficit. I wasn't quite aware of that. I had a feeling that I had more resources to work with than they did because I did deny that several times. And as a result, the army supply is actually heavily in favor of me. I can, and a lot of their army supply are in these portals. Right now, they do have a pretty scary army right here. Storms are just always scary no matter how many. There are Void Rays and a dramatic alignment to have more units against armored, so Broodlords and Corruptors. And the fact that they move slower too, by the way, when it hit it, but it's still really scary. I don't remember what happened here. I'm denying the space, like, that should be my primary objective, and I did accomplish it. And I think the Banelings all ran into the portal, so that was actually a pretty terrible trade for me. And if I sent them in to deny the space or just destroy the mineral line or something while I pushed with this, then it would have been a lot better. I wasn't watching these Broodlords, by the way. That's just the risk I run. And yeah, like, I just walked into that, and as a result, I lose all my Broodlords for essentially nothing. But I do take a better engagement here. I mean, it's not a good engagement because if I sent nothing but Lings, which I'm doing now, a bit late, then I wouldn't have lost that many Hydras. But as a result, I did lose a lot of Hydras, a bunch of them. Now knowing that they have a small number of units, but really strong against like Corruptors and Broodlords, I decided to just remake nothing but Lings, Hydras. They come out onto the middle of the map, and that's where I can take a way better engagement, then that's what's going to happen. I wasn't realizing that I was pretty much the game was kind of over a lot. Most people. I still saw that this army was really scary, and it is, but at the same time, they're only mining this base, and if I didn't make that move of sending the Banes and the Hydras and the amount of Lings to take out this base, even if I didn't kill all the probes, then they would have essentially had no income. So, it kind of makes sense that they don't have two. As a result, since I have so many low tier units but high DPSing units, I decided to go for like a run by, but have that covered. If I had some more Hydras, I definitely could have surrounded and killed those two Archons at the cost of some, but as you have way more resources. And I still do have quite a few drones. I can't even saturate the gas because the game's just so hectic at the moment. These rocks are really important finding if they expand here and take this as a fourth base, because these rocks allow so many more choices for the Zerg to do. And like if they attack here, you can flank around here and stuff, and right here you can flank around the rocks. If you want to go around here and attack, you can send units, rally units, so get to this position or attack this base much faster. These rocks, I should just realize that they're really important and they're broken down. So here there is a way better army ratio, I would say. It's not just all Lings, because it is primarily a Ling run by, but they do have walls or they do have storms, then Ling can't really. The time they spend dilly dallying and losing these Lings is pretty bad, and I'm trying to incorporate more different types of units. Pylons, I mean, Banelings to break the bust any overcharged pylons if there was, and Hydras to snipe the wall so it doesn't get completely. Or if there was like a one Void Ray or a few Oracles, and those clean up Links so fast, and Hydras. So they do have their main position. They're trying to mine from this base. They could do with a little transfer, but they are preoccupied, and this is just what happens when you don't have too many units. You can't defend both places at once, and I guess they thought that this was way more important than their infrastructure, but at the same time, I'm not quite sure, because without their main and their natural and everything else, like that's all their buildings. Even if they mined money, they can't necessarily spend it. They would have to rebuild the infrastructure. So I was totally okay. This is going well for me at the moment. And they're onto the middle of the map, and if I just do one big surround, I could have split these corruptors way better, but I was just, I don't want to say overconfident, but I just didn't put enough effort into splitting. If I came like, I didn't need to go around and flank from this position. I could have just had one giant con, which I tried to do, but it was, if I just spent a few more clicks moving the corruptors amongst this line as well, then the Archons wouldn't splash so much against the corruptors. Thorns wouldn't. I need to pull my units back and box and micro. The corruptors are going to be spaced out and they won't all die immediately. You know what, the only way I can sort of lose this game is by taking a bad engagement, and by taking a bad engagement is clumping up for storms. I do have a shit ton of money in the game, I realize that, and I have a lot of production. I don't have too much mining, but I guess I have quite very little mining. But I still have a lot of banked resources. If I saturated bases and a bit more presence or that, then I would have a lot more income. But in this situation, I realize that if I take one bad engagement and lose my entire army, which happens a lot by the way, then I can potentially actually, the only way I can lose this game is by doing that, because these units, the Hydras do a lot of DPS, they are 3-3-3, and I need to make sure that even though I am at a high supply, a lot of it are in eggs and they're not necessarily with them at the moment. And they did use a prismatic alignment, so finally I decided to take an engagement. And they do have a few storms, and each storm they use is less firepower, and I take the engagement when I feel like there's less storms. And I mean, the corruptors are doing pretty, they just died, they just melt the void rays, but I feel like this is still pretty dicey. But if I had only corruptors and not that many hydras that have 3-3-3 or 3-3, then I would have just given up this space, because it's not mining too much. I haven't mined the gas geysers yet, and killing all that killing all the infrastructure, I feel like I don't really need to take an engagement, because I can just there and spend my resources, whereas they really can't. And that's what I'm saying with mass Lings, and you don't try to do run-bys. It just takes one split second for them to form all the Lings, and what happens. I pull the Hydras back and they... But I do still need to make sure that I don't take a poor engagement. I see them moving out onto the map, so I know that I can come in here with relatively low risk. They don't have a mothership or a mothership core, so even if they do recall, I can take a good concave and engage, and there's that grace period where I can fight. And they come in at one angle, and that's the best they can do. And I think I could actually fought there, but I guess there was no reason to, because I'm not maxed. I still have the resources. started making queens because I feel like making queens are one of the easiest way to buff up to make units without bearing the few seconds, the scant seconds it takes to take more bases and mine gas. When you make queens, all you do is hit your hatchery hotkeys and then bam Q and have more units. Queens are super useful. They transfuse the corruptors, which I did a couple times during the play. They tank really well too. And they do have upgrades. They do have anti-air with pretty high range, and this is the final engagement, and I still do have resources banked, and excess of minerals is just queens are good. Didn't really just yet. I thought I brought a few, but I guess I didn't bring them. Yeah, I didn't bring them just. So this game's pretty much over, but I feel like it was pretty enlightening. There were a couple of times where I feel like after taking engagement, could I have actually been more aggressive and pushed to end the game instead of just going back and macroing after killing a base or taking good engagement and taking small advantages. But at the end, I think that a lot of people might disagree with me, but I think I did an okay job. So I made okay choices about not trying to end the game, but I wasn't necessarily aware of it at the time. And I could have just as easily pushed and tried to win, but if I screw up, then I can actually just throw away any sort of lead. And even though I kill a base and I try to push and end it, I can throw away a lot of the army and momentum. And it just really sucks. Because as you can see in this game, they didn't really put that much pressure on my bases. Throughout the early mid to late game, it was mostly just killing this outline one push, trying to do 4%. These bases never got touched, and that's I have a lot of momentum because I have a lot of units because I didn't lose them all trying to push to win. But a lot of people will disagree with me, and I think most people would disagree with me because if you push and end and win the game, then there's no physical way the game can go any longer because the game's over because you already won. So I totally see where that is coming from, but maybe it's just my inconfidence with my control because I feel like I have okay macro. My weak suit is the arm control, even though I took pretty good in this game, but I don't know if that's just because the Ling, Bane, Hydra comp wide open map for a variety of other reasons as opposed to micro. I mean, I didn't sit in storm. But I feel like I'm dragging on, so that's going to be the recording. Maybe when the mood strikes me, I'll make another one.